Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Monday, October the 27th, 2025. Today, we are talking about finding good mulches, the somewhat false productivity of conventional agriculture, and the changing landscape of farming information. See what I did there? Super clever. So let's do it. All right, happy Monday, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well as you can be, only being one day into the week, and that you all had lovely weekends. Mine was pretty solid. I know I said I was done with coaching last weekend, but then a friend got sick, so I stepped in to coach his team, which was super fun, but otherwise lots of hanging out with the kids, enjoying the cool down. I'm still mesmerized by these sunflowers. They truly survived like a pretty hard frost, like it was no big deal. Is there a winter kill cover crop hiding underneath all that beauty? A hidden talent of sorts? I'm starting to wonder. I see you, sunflowers. Also, a quick note that, first, I will be going live again on Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Can you believe a month has passed since the last time we did that? Anyway, be ready to join us here at YouTube with your questions for that party. Also, don't forget to send in your 20-second farm video clips to farmermike@no-tillgrowers.com. Always. Let us know how your fall/winter garden is going, or your spring/summer garden if you're in the southern hemi. Finally, on the updates front, unfortunately, we're going to have to pause international shipping of books and hats for the moment, which is a double bummer because we just got these new slick hats here and a new soil nerd hat, which is super cool. But we're going to have to pause that for a little while because we're getting customers telling us they can't, or quite fairly don't want to, pay the extra tariff. For one Canadian customer, it was like $63 extra for a $49 order. And that, according to last week's news, about to go up. So they totally understandably declined. Because we generally have to pay to retrieve the packages, though, it ends up being an additional cost for us. So we're just going to pause until the tariffs come down. It's deeply unfortunate for us as a small organization and for our support internationally to have to stop shipping, but it's just costing us more than it's worth while disappointing our supporters. So sorry, friends. At some point in time, we will just start an international branch of no-till growers so we can effectively serve our international audience with a little bit more stability. But until then, just support a local ag organization who sells the book in your country. If you can, that would be awesome. Okay, now that I have covered that, let's talk mulch. I'm just on it today. I'm on one. It's great. Nailed it. All right, so today I want to start a little bit of a mulch series. We talked a couple weeks ago about the importance of keeping the soil covered as much as possible, but one of the things I've said for many years is that you can't just like make recommendations like that without the how. So often when I was, coming up in this business, a phrase I don't think I've ever actually used for farming, but when we were coming up in this industry, I felt like there was a lot of philosophical guidance, like don't disturb the soil or use cover crops, but an insufficient amount of information about what the heck that even looks like. No one was telling us how to do it. Over the next couple or possibly next few weeks, we're going to talk about different mulches and the how in their implementation and employment. Not just how to use them, I guess, but also how to find them, what to look for, what to ask the seller, because yes, mulches can be great for your gardens, but use the wrong mulch in the wrong situation and you could wind up with contamination from seeds or chemicals or plastic or just really cold soil that's not very helpful to you. So today we'll talk about how to identify the mulches that you have available to you. This is important because you may have locally available mulches that I don't have access to where you are, wherever it is that you're located, or you may have mulches you can't even really use. So let's kick off this mulch series with exactly that, identifying your mulch options. First, there are several places/resources where you can figure out what is around locally. I recommend just reaching out to your local extension office to start and seeing if anyone they know is selling hay, straw, manure, or compost. Sometimes they may know someone who has a lot of straw, or sometimes the FSA employee themselves or the extension agent or whoever produces their own mulch. This is a great place to start, especially if you're new to an area. Also, Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace can be additional resources for just seeing what people have available. I mean, I'm assuming that I haven't been on Facebook in a while, but there are brokers and sellers and retailers out there as well who sell mulch. But the ideal thing, in my opinion, is to buy it directly from the farmer themselves, because that's when you can ask like pertinent questions about what the mulch might contain. If you tell a hay producer, for instance, that you are looking for a hay for a garden and you don't want to use it if it's been sprayed with a broadleaf herbicide, most farmers are going to be upfront with you about if they did or did not use that like any sort of broadleaf herbicide because one, they want future business, and two, most farmers are just decent folks. Like they're not going to lie to you just to get, like $100 sale. I've had farmers straight up tell me they didn't want to sell me a product just out of fear that there may be some herbicide contamination, even though they felt like it was unlikely based on what they sprayed in the field. You may still decide you want to buy it. Just maybe they sprayed a pre-emergent or something and you're like, okay, well, that's not too bad. But it is good to ask them. Same for straw. If you find a source, you can ask them if they desiccated the crop for termination with an herbicide or if anything was sprayed post-emergent. Sometimes growers will spray a pre-emergent herbicide, like I said, which is not going to be as potent on the hay or straw as an herbicide sprayed later in the season directly onto what they will be harvesting. They may also be able to tell you if there was like Johnson grass in the field or, pigweed or whatever when they were harvesting or Canadian thistle or what, any of those sort of noxious weeds. Different areas will have different hay, straw, and manure options. Some areas may have rice straw, some barley, some wheat. Others might even have, like marsh hay, which may be ideal since the weeds that grow in salt marshes require salt to germinate. So it's essentially, like weed seed free to an extent. Of course, speaking of weed seeds, you can ask the farmers how clean the harvest was on, like things like straw, and if they would be concerned with weed seeds from that grain being contained in the straw itself too much. Some weed seeds from wheat or whatever are almost inevitable. You just don't want to plant a stand of wheat wherever you mulch if you can help it. Then, of course, there are other mulches out there, such as leaves. Leaves are not my favorite solo mulch. We're going to talk more about them tomorrow, but they're not my favorite solo mulch, as because we do a lot of lettuce mixes, and as much as the soil loves leaves love lettuce mixes, but they can be great for around crops they can't contaminate so much, such as like peppers and tomatoes and longer season stuff. Sometimes just driving around looking for leaves or leaf bags piled on the side of the road is adequate, but again, more on leaves tomorrow. Sometimes just checking in with your local waste management office for mulches, you can become a drop point for leaves or wood chips or whatever, so they don't have to pay the tipping fee at the dump. Same with arborists, with their wood chips, they may be able to bring those straight to you, and they may prefer that. Now, in terms of a mulch, we'll talk more individually about these as we go along, but I don't really love fresh wood chips so much, but year-old wood chips, partially decomposed, can make a great mulch around those same bigger crops like tomatoes, or if you have a lot of compost, a thick layer of compost and then a thin layer of partially decomposed wood chips can combo up nicely. Or I think I've mentioned this one before, but I know for at least a little while that local harvest farm in Western Canada was piling chicken manure on wood chips for new beds and allowing that to break down for a while until it was basically like plantable as a passive, like bed prep technique. That's not a bad idea for utilizing two raw but somewhat potent ingredients to chill each other out a little bit and create a plantable bed surface. Also, hit up the farmers market and just see what you can find out from your local farmers in terms of what's available as mulches for them. I'm not a big fan of getting mulch materials from the dump because you have no idea what's in it, but I've been to the dump many times and just scooped up truckloads of fresh wood chips that I could tell were fresh for free. For wood chips, which I do like to have around perennial plantings more so than annuals, I have chased down many a wood chipper in my day. I will be late for a meeting or whatever if it means catching an arborist pumping gas. I'm not a big hustle culture guy, except when it comes to wood chips. On the grind for wood chips, for sure. In that way, you can also hit up the yellow pages, which I think we call Google now, and search for local arborists, give them a shout. Heck, they may even have piles of decomposed wood chips to offer you for free, which may or may not be worth it. But it's worth checking out. Sometimes on places like Craigslist, you will also find people selling aged horse manure and such. Yes, there is some risk there with, persistent herbicides and the like, but if you can haul it and then compost it properly, a lot of that risk will dissipate. Anyway, what are some mulches you've found in your area and how? Let us know. Otherwise, we will take a quick break, and when we come back, conventional agriculture's productivity myth, or at least it's sort of a myth. BRB. Today's episode is brought to you by Farmhand. Renewal season is here, and the work you put in now is what brings members back next year. Ari Memar, founder of Farmhand and a guest you've heard on this podcast, has worked with regenerative farmers to create a playbook that turns renewal season into a growth season. One farmer, Melanie at Shake Fork Community Farm, brought in $40,000 in renewals in just 2 weeks using this strategy. Now, Ari and Melanie are sharing the exact approach in a free live workshop and downloadable playbook. Watch on demand and get the playbook at farmhand.partners/no-till. That's farmhand.partners/no-till. All right, back to the show. If you, the listener or viewer, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere that questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions. Now, today's Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Tom Welch, who writes, quote, "Hi, Jesse. I would like to hear more scientifically validated information regarding the effect of commercial fertilizer on soil. Once per month, I drive through southern Indiana and Illinois and see some of the most productive agricultural farms in the U.S. I believe that most, if not all, are using commercial fertilizers and have been for many years. The productivity of these farms continues to grow. So my question is, does the use of commercial fertilizer cause a detriment to the soil, insects, and microbes? Has this been established through research?" End quote. All right, so great question here, Tom. I love this. So first, it's important to understand that conventional agriculture is highly productive. And in fact, it has been growing increasingly productive in many ways over the last couple decades, thanks in large part to better seed genetics and more precision agriculture in terms of chemical applications, both fertilizer and pesticides. But it's also important that we don't conflate productivity in terms of yields with productivity in terms of like soil and ecological and community health. Yes, conventional agriculture is getting better in many ways, with the use per bushel of synthetic nitrogen declining, according to some studies. And I'm happy to applaud that, because it does mean that, at least for those with access to that technology, they are reducing their chemical inputs. However, and this goes along to some extent with our disturbance conversation, we are still seeing massive species die-offs because of farming like this. We are still seeing nutrient runoff, phosphorus and nitrogen in particular, and soil loss from large-scale conventional agriculture. Those contribute to significant declines in habitat, buildup of things like nitrates in water supplies, dust storms, all the things. The nutritional quality of this produce is also questionable, may satiate people, but it's not so much feeding them, or I guess you could say nourishing them. In a sense, what we're seeing is almost closer to hydroponics than agriculture, where the chemistry is what is growing the plants, not so much the biology. And when that happens, the biology suffers, all the biology, big, little, or otherwise. Now, that isn't to say there is no place for conventional agriculture. We have a lot of freaking people to feed on this planet. And it's also not to say that conventional agriculture in many ways isn't going in the right direction. By at least some metrics, it definitely is. Also, there is more interest within conventional agriculture in utilizing fewer chemicals and more biological approaches, and more animal integration, more compost applications, those sorts of things. One, because it's less expensive, and two, because it's more fun. I don't think people love spraying chemicals if they don't have to. So the question is less about, can conventional agriculture grow a lot of food? It absolutely can. It's just changing the perspective to at what cost. We know through the science, per your question, for instance, that nitrogen fertilizers decrease microbial populations and diversity as nitrogen-sensitive taxa retreat from the soil. We know chemical properties within the soil are changed and that enzymatic activities decrease. We know that synthetic phosphorus and nitrogen pollutes waterways and causes dangerous algae blooms and eutrophication. I'll put some helpful studies on that stuff in the show notes. But again, with the increasing prevalence of precision agriculture, we are hopefully going to see fewer of those issues. But what we won't see is substantial increases in ecological biodiversity, micro or macro. Ecologically speaking, we are mostly headed towards less bad, but still not great in terms of conventional agriculture. Hopefully we are seeing not only more precision agriculture, but also an uptick in organic inputs. Varying meta-analyses have demonstrated that organic fertilization increases microbial biomass and enzymatic activity in comparison to conventional systems, and that crop rotations are also important for those factors when compared to monocultures that we see in conventional agriculture. Those are factors that ultimately bring health to the soil and the crop and the ecology, but also potentially resilience in things like harsher weather, heavier rainfalls, all the other stuff that we're dealing with. So yeah, there is plenty of science there, but also I think there is at least some promise when we're looking at conventional agriculture systems and seeing less chemical usage, more precision in how the chemicals are used, and hopefully more biodiversity in general in terms of what they're planting and how they're planting it. And of course, animal integration. It's big right now. So anyway, I hope there was at least something vaguely answering your question in there. I think it's a good one, though, and I think it's one we should always be updating our understanding of the world, because especially as it pertains to conventional agriculture, it's constantly changing, and those growers can be quite savvy. Let us know your thoughts, and we're going to take a quick break. When we return, let's talk about the future of farming education. Be right back.
Farmer Claire Coleman here from the Winter Growers Podcast. Did you know that I also founded Real Farmer Care, a nonprofit that supports farmer well-being? From my own experiences farming, I knew firsthand that this type of support was missing from ag, so I decided to do something about it. As of today, there are over 500 farmer recipients of a $100 self-care award, with more applying daily. If you'd like to help, each $100 donated supports one new farmer. Visit realfarmercare.com to donate and learn more. Again, that's realfarmercare.com.
All right, so the other day I was getting the link for one of our show videos to share with you all, and I noticed this little diamond shape with the word ask underneath the video on YouTube, and I thought, I wonder what that is. Well, that, it turns out, and maybe most of you all already know this, is an AI chatbot. When you click it, a chat bar comes up next to the video that says, hello, just like that with the exclamation point. Hello, curious about what you're watching? I'm here to help. And then it gives you such options as summarize the video or recommend similar content, and then some specific questions regarding that video. When you click on those little suggestions, like the summarize the video one, it tells you what's in the video and gives you a summary of what was said in each segment with follow-up questions. Okay, cool, interesting. So I got the AI bot to do a summary of my video, and then it's a pretty good summary, but I asked the chat bot, if someone reads this versus watches the video, does the creator make less revenue? And the AI bot responded that if that happens, quote, the creator generally makes less revenue from that specific interaction. YouTube's primary monetization for creators comes from ads displayed within or around their videos. When a video is watched, ads have the opportunity to be served and viewed, generating revenue for the creator through ad impressions and clicks. A summary, while helpful, does not typically generate ad revenue for the creator on the YouTube platform itself, end quote. Now, on the one hand, I like the idea of a world where information is free and accessible. That is ultimately what No-Till Growers is about. That's like what we do. On the other hand, though, with decreasing ad revenue, farmer creators, possibly one day including no-till growers, cannot survive. So big picture, so far, what I've seen with AI is not a total obsoletification, if not a word, I don't think, but you get the idea. It's not making the content creators that AI utilizes for its content obsolete, but like I've said before, it's more of a saturation or dilution of that content, meaning AI is not going to replace the content creation entirely, but by chipping away at the already incredibly small amount of revenue that can be produced by sharing information, farm information will become less justifiable to share, at least for free, especially when it's being repackaged by a corporation like Google for profit, but maybe even beyond that. And it's beyond just YouTube ad revenue. Content creators like ourselves also rely heavily on ad revenue from small businesses. But if the videos and or podcasts can be summarized so readily, maybe even chopped up one day and put into a more efficient edit that skips the advertisers and dad jokes, which, all right, fair. Those dollars will no longer help to prop up content, because why would those small companies spend, those dollars? The amazing companies who support us currently are generally pretty small companies with often limited ad dollars who can often only, afford a short stint of advertising. So not only will this limit their reach, but also limit their ability to get in front of the customers they hope to serve and limit our ability to offer them that platform. Now, I'm not complaining about a changing market here. Okay, maybe I'm lightly complaining about it because AI is just flat out theft, but rather what I'm trying to do is prepare you for a future where content creation is not worth anyone's while. I fear everything will go back to, behind a paywall or just not be worth making at all. I also worry tremendously about a world of answers with no work behind them, answers with no context or confirmation from a real grower. But that's the information landscape we are creating, even somewhat embracing with AI. We will be able to get the exact info we want, sorta, but whether it will be accurate is really anyone's guess, because AI can't garden, AI can't battle a pest, fix drainage, rely on a crop's success to cover its bills, deal with a changing marketplace, etc. But anyway, blah, blah, blah. I know I've talked about this stuff before. AI is here to stay. There is no denying that. America was built for the people, by the people, but then we gave corporations personhood, and they said, oh, I'll take that, thank you, to the world. So no one is just going to say, let's pause AI for a bit and work all the copyright stuff out, because the corporations, the people, won't let that happen. So with that in mind, is there any silver lining? Well, maybe we will all just get bored of AI generation, put our phones down and a little bit more and pick up books and podcasts and the things that we know people have made because we know they experienced it. Maybe because of a growing interest in farming, sustainable farming organizations will get some of their funding back so they can continue to offer more in-person opportunities on farms, at conferences, and so on. But those are pretty big maybes there, if not complete impossibilities. The educational landscape is definitely changing, and that's fine. Landscapes change, albeit rarely this rapidly, but they do change. But I think there will be more desire to farm in the near future, not less. So with that, there will be more desire for good information in the future. Whether that good information will be there, though, updated to current markets, current weather trends, current tools, current economy, who knows? I suppose it will all come down to whether farmers are able to and willing to share their information anymore, knowing it's just going to be stolen, repackaged, and sold by someone else. I fear that's a bit of a hard sell, and I also think that's enough on AI for the day. What do you all think? Am I overly pessimistic? Am I giving AI or maybe even farm content creation too much credit? Let me know your thoughts or insights. Otherwise, let's call it a Monday. Don't forget, No-Till Growers is now officially a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out as well. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors, and if you'd ever like to sponsor this show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music and Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Hear that? That's background music. Pick up a hat like this new one, or like our beanies, or like all the new ones at notillgrowers.com to support our work. Or you can also, while you're over there, pick up a copy of the Living Soil Handbook. That's another way to do it. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/notillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of October, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to Richard Gould. That's very late October-y of you, Richard. And David Woodruff. Woodruff is not so October-y, but it's a good name. Very novelistic. I think this story, you would think, at least since we were going to finish out this week on Halloween, literally the 31st is Friday, which is 13th backward. That's fun to know. Anyway, you'd think this story would be a spooky one, but what if it's not? What if this week's story is just a story of a young child, a sweet young child named Anne, who is kind of shy, kind of quiet, but is incredibly imaginative. One of the hardest things for Anne's parents, a single child Anne, is talking to her when she slips into like one of her imagination modes, because she is so enveloped by it that she becomes almost unreachable for a while. Normally, this is not a problem. Anne usually, like snaps out of it and answers her parents' questions and all those things. But this week, that imagination, that sort of realm that she goes into, gets Anne into a situation, or a few. We'll find out. It depends on how many days I can keep this going. But anyway, that is for tomorrow, assuming we get some Patreon signups and bump ups on why of all things, which will make sense later. Or maybe it won't. We'll find out. Thanks for watching and or listening. We'll see you then. Bye.